Hey y'all, day 28 of going live on different topics, and the question that was given to me for English, or excuse me, is what is your top resource for parents who are transitioning to conscious parenting? Alright, so with that, honestly, if I only have to give one thing, which I'm gonna give a couple. So right now I'm gonna get up here to the door. Finish this up. So if I only had to give one, it actually wouldn't be a resource. It would be for parents to do some introspection of what their childhood was like, and so I would say what their childhood was like. And many people, me included, when I first transitioned to conscious parenting, was, I'm fine. I actually turned out really well because XYZ was done to me. But first of all, our bar for what's fine is very low. Like, you ain't on drugs, you ain't in jail, and you got some money coming in, right? Like, our bar for I'm fine is extremely low, and it is nowhere near thriving, first of all. And I had to realize that. So that's why my first tip to transitioning would be introspection, because you can have all the resources in the world, but until you understand that maybe things that were done to me probably wasn't the best. And I'll preface all of this with people do the best they can with the tools they have, period. So this is not a blame, shame, or anything. It's just what it is, and these are conversations that need to be had. So the bar is super low. And also, when we say we're fine, we have to think about, what does fine mean? Are you confident in yourself? How do you act when you are angry? How do you act when you have any of those non-delightful feelings? Do you process emotions very well? What are some other questions we can ask when we say we're fine? Like, are we really asking ourselves these questions? Do you feel loved? Do you feel like you can be yourself? Are you clear on your direction? Are you able to make decisions by yourself, or be sound in the decisions you make, or do you need someone to direct you? How do you feel when someone's mad at you? How do you feel when you're feeling rejected, or someone doesn't agree with you? Like, these are questions I asked myself when I really started to say, well, hold up, I am quote unquote fine, but am I thriving? And so when you ask those questions, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna say 10 times out of 10, honestly, but if you were raised in traditional mindset, those questions will not be yes, yes, and yes. I thrive, I communicate well, I'm able to communicate when I'm upset, I'm able to communicate when my feelings are hurt, I'm able to be alone and be okay. I don't need outside influence or outside validation for XYZ. Like, 9 times out of 10, if you were raised a traditional way, then you can't say yes to that. So that's why when I say the number one resource is introspection, is because I was getting a ton of resources, right? Like the different posts of why we shouldn't hit kids, why we shouldn't do this, why we shouldn't do that. But it wasn't resonating with me, because I felt that I was okay. And I felt that if I did not do XYZ to my child, then they would turn out XYZ, because traditional parenting is all based on fear and control. So it has to resonate inside that maybe this is something I can look into. Once you do that, and you can honestly answer those questions, and you can be honest with yourself, and there's a whole healing process that I feel like actually never goes away. It's not like, oh, now we heal and now I transition to conscious parenting. For me, it's I'm healing while also conscious parenting the best that I can, showing up every day, apologizing, all the things. Like, it's not really a step-by-step. It's like all in one, and depending on how much trauma you experience and all of that. But once you are able to be honest with yourself, God always sends the resources you need, the people you need, the posts you need, whatever. And so then when I get to the resources, I would say join some Facebook groups. There are hella great Facebook groups out here. When I have time later, I will tag them in the post. When I first started my journey, I was posting questions like daily, because I was just so distraught and like really felt like, man, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing at all, and everything I'm doing is wrong. Which reminds me to say, have compassion. Like, we can only, like I said at the beginning, you could only do as good as the tools you have. We don't know we can only do what was done to us until we know better. But when you know better, you gotta show up and do that work. So join some Facebook groups. I'll tag them. Get you a community, man. I feel like the hardest part about transitioning is being around people who are not like that. Adult gaze, you can look that up and learn what that is. It was very hard for me. It actually was the first thing that let me realize that, wow, I do lack confidence in a lot of areas, because when I was transitioning, I would know me hitting my kid is not cool, right? Like, there was a point in time where I would still do it because like people was around me that felt that that's how we were supposed to do, and I knew what they would think if I didn't, because I was that person. So having a community of people that can validate, like, no, you're not crazy, you are doing the right thing, this is why this is happening. Because if you are conscious parenting, you can't talk to a traditional parent and get some good advice. You just can't. And I'm not with trying to also convince people either. People got to come to terms in their own time. So that one, okay, Facebook group communities. The first book I read on conscious parenting was actually Stacey Patton's Spirit the Child, I think is what it's called. And she addresses, especially for the Black culture, a lot of the beliefs we have around parenting, around whoopings specifically. Like, oh, in the Bible it says spirit of rod, like, it don't even say that, right? Or, you know, we, from religious perspective, you have to discipline your kids because X, Y, Z. She talks about, well, if you don't whoop your kids and if you don't do X, Y, Z and instill that fear in your kids, the police is gonna do it. And they're gonna, like, she talks about that, how like we have allowed actual white supremacy to tell us how to treat our children, that our children aren't good people and
that's what everyone
don't know how to behave unless pain is brought upon them, right? Like, where did that come from, right? We know this kind of stuff, but it's so ingrained in us and it's so normal to us that we don't even realize we're doing it. So that book addressed it, several things. And actually, when I first found out about her, I didn't really care for her. I'm like, she don't have kids, how can she, you know? But she's got the science. And when you get into the science, if you don't believe nothing else, when you get into the science about the brain and what pain does to the brain, and I remember one thing that really threw me off was like, damn, these kids are getting in trouble for, children, toddlers, 3-4-year-olds getting in trouble for falling out, for having these outbursts and stuff, and none of us even know that they literally do not even have the logical part of their mind. Like, that whole side is turned off. So we are punishing, causing pain, causing trauma to children who are doing what they only can do. And I'm like, wow, like, we're raising kids and having no idea about the brain. So I got into research about the brain that led me to all kinds of shit, like the impulse behavior for teens, how my 2 and 3-year-old, like, she might be fine 1 minute and then the next, like, have a whole fucking fit, start hitting. Like, that's normal. She's not gonna be this person that beats up people at 8 or 9. Like, all this fear we have around, if we don't cause pain and punishment and fear into these children, that they're not gonna be good people, is fucking ridiculous. But we have to start doing the work. So that book, Spare the Ride, was important. And then I also went on her website and she had this thing that was super cheesy, but it actually worked for me. She had this, and she might still have it, where like you say, like, on this day, I vow to never hit my children again. It's like a whole certificate, you sign it, you print it off, you provide it to your children. And like Marion Cameron was like, what? But like saying it out loud and putting it on words and having this whole certificate, like, this is like, it made it real, versus I'm gonna try not to hit my kids anymore. Like, it's totally different. So I did that. I have a conscious parenting coach who was amazing. Her name is Tanisha. I will tag her in her business page. She's actually dropping advice every day this month, and it has been lit. Like just 5-6 minutes that will just blow your mind. So get you a community. Okay, so I said face introspection. You need to be able to understand and agree that maybe that's not the right thing. Get you a community of people who also understand that. Facebook groups, they're free. Post all your fucking questions. You can post them anonymously. Like I post it all the time. Conscious parenting coach, if you really got some deep-seated stuff, like even a year, I'm probably 2 years in. I say over a year, like for real serious, and I still struggle so bad. I think it's something I'm gonna always do for a very long time, and I'm okay with that. I know that I'm also healing while also helping them. Other tips, Dr. Shafali, amazing, and she's so funny. So get you some people on YouTube that talk about this, TikTok that talk about this. Like in this day and age, we cannot talk about what we don't know. There are so many resources. I'll tag them all in the post, man. Like we can no longer, well, I didn't know. Like our parents could say that. We can't say that no more. Like YouTube, you can't even get on fucking YouTube. You can't get on TikTok. You can't get on Facebook without seeing some kind of post that explains why children are human beings and should be treated as such. You know, why you wouldn't encourage your daughter to stay with someone who's beating them, but it's okay for you to beat them. Like all kind of common sense shit that we know is common sense when we break it down. But our paradigm is so deeply rooted in that when you realize that shit was wrong, like you start questioning all kind of shit that you thought was right. That's wrong. So I would say all of that. Dr. Shafali, amazing. I think it's Shelafi. She wrote a book. I think it's just called Conscious Parenting, and she talks about that. I feel like I can go on all day about resources, y'all. I really could, and I'll post as many as I can in here. But honestly, the number one thing I did was introspection. That's introspection, because once you start connecting the dots, like, this is why I do this. This is why I don't do that. This is why I cannot communicate. This is why I'm unable to say, hey, I feel this when you did that. Oh, because when you start connecting all that and you start connecting your experience with what you're also doing to your child, you can't help but to be like, something's off here. I got to do better. So introspection, if you do nothing else, introspection. When you start introspection and you get on that vibration of maybe something's wrong, the research is going to come to you. You're not even going to have to look for them. Excuse me. No, you're good. You're not even going to have to look for them. So introspection. Got to get my coffee, get my night started. I love y'all. And I really hope this helps somebody. It's the best thing I ever did was change the way I'm hearing. Showing up every day. Like, this is how you break generational cycles. Our kids are the future. So I'll post all of my resources that I talked about